I don't want to spend too much time talking about Snowden per se, because I feel like there's, to a certain extent, we know as much in many respects as we're going to know about him. Perhaps I don't know, but one of the things that I have wondered about in terms of sort of the meta of this story is from the very beginning is where you, I mean, how, and by this point, there's obviously been a lot more sort of understanding of who Edward Snowden is or and was up to the moment that he leaked. But what was it like for you? I mean, how were you able, or were you able, to have a notion of who this guy was and whether or not the documents you were getting were legit? I would imagine you also were concerned about revealing who he was before he had done that himself.
Right. So first of all, I think there's this misconception that I've been somehow arguing that questions or discussions about Snowden are totally trivial and irrelevant. I don't actually think that at all. The criticism I've made of the media isn't that they've done reporting on Snowden or wanted to know about Snowden. It was that that's come at the expense of the substantive revelations, that they're so obsessed with the personality parts of it that they've essentially written out of their narrative what has actually been revealed about the NSA. And they're so focused on declaring him a criminal and all the bad things that he's done in their eyes, while ignoring the much more serious criminality by people who have a lot more power, namely those who are running the NSA and who are at the highest levels of the Obama administration. So that's been my critique. I actually think it is important to understand Snowden. He's a historical figure at this point. He's probably the most significant whistleblower of the last century. And Daniel Ellsberg, who is probably the competitor for that title, himself says that that's the case. I think it's really fascinating to understand why somebody at the age of 29 would throw away what most people would view as a really, not just satisfactory, but lucky and blessed life in order to pursue abstract political goals that really don't benefit that person in any way. I think and I hope that his actions will inspire other people to be sufficiently brave to come forward. Remember, Ron Wyden and Mark Udall, two U.S. senators, have been running around the country for 2 years warning the American public that the Obama administration had these secret interpretations of law that were really radical and warped, and that they had used these interpretations of law to vest themselves with radical power that, in their words, would stun the American people if they learned about it. And yet Senators Wyden and Udall, even though they're two of the better senators on this stuff, lack the courage that Edward Snowden has, which is they lack the courage to come forward and tell Americans what it was that they were talking about, what was so alarming. So it took Edward Snowden, a 29-year-old kid who doesn't have the protections that those senators have, to come and tell us. And figuring out and understanding why and thinking about why that's heroic and noble and we owe him our gratitude, I think, are really important. So to answer your question specifically, when I went to Hong Kong, I had already spent a lot of hours talking to him before I got there, mostly online, in fact, exclusively online. And, obviously my first goal when I began talking to him, and then certainly once I got to Hong Kong, where I spent, I don't know how many hours, but I was there 12 days. I was, speaking to him either in person or online, probably 10 hours a day at least during the time I was in Hong Kong, probably more. So I spent a lot of time with him. And one of my first goals was to understand why he chose to do what he did, both because I had a real curiosity to understand why somebody would do that. But also I needed to assure myself that if somebody was going to take a step which would unravel their lives and bring upon them very serious consequences, I needed to know that they had really thought it through, that they were open-eyed and rational about it. And I spent a long time questioning him about that in lots of different ways. And what I continuously heard was the same thing, which was very persuasive to me, which was, I'm somebody who judges the worth of my life based not on my beliefs, but based on the actions that I take in pursuit of those beliefs. I grew up in the world of the internet, where the promise of the internet was that you could explore things without anyone knowing, that you could enjoy anonymity and privacy. And I don't want to live in a world where that's destroyed, where the internet becomes this tool of oppression rather than a tool of liberation. And that I just can, in good conscience, be part of this secret, nefarious, destructive system that is being built by the United States against my fellow citizens of the rest of the world. and sit by quietly and have people ignorant of it. I just wouldn't be able to live with myself. And so it became very clear to me, and it was very persuasive why he did what he did, that he was genuine and authentic about the things that he was saying. I vetted these documents, for a long time. There were thousands of them. It would have been impossible for someone to just fraudulently manufacture them.
Right.
I saw his ID. I saw his government documents. I saw a lot of things that made me believe in the authenticity of who he was and what he was saying. Obviously, you can never get proof with mathematical certainty. And I knew that had this been fake, my credibility, the credibility of The Guardian would be forever crippled. So you do what you can to assure yourself that it's all real, but ultimately you have to rely on your own judgment and intuition about who is genuine and authentic and who isn't. And by the end of the second day in Hong Kong, I had zero doubt, literally zero doubt, that he was exactly who he said he was, that he had done what he did for exactly the reasons that he claimed, and that the documents were completely real, and all of that turned out to be true.
I mean, and how did you? How did you? I mean, I guess to a certain extent, you've got all of these thousands of documents. Maybe this question answers itself, but on some level, the how did you know that it wasn't necessarily? I mean, I guess maybe you've answered this, but one thing that just struck me was you don't have the ability to call Booz Allen and say, hey, incidentally, do you have, the day before you're looking at these documents, can I ask you about an employee who hasn't come in for a couple of days? I mean, did you have at any time any concern that maybe you were seeing something that was interagency? Here's a guy by his own accounting had worked for the CIA and then sort of had moved over to the NSA. Was there ever a time where you contemplated maybe this is something that's also internally happening?
Sure. I mean, there was a 2008 document that was written by the U.S. Army, and it was designated top secret, and it was about WikiLeaks, and it declared WikiLeaks to be an enemy of the state and talked about ways that the U.S. Army could destroy WikiLeaks or cripple their ability to function. And one of the things it talked about was that if fraudulent documents were leaked to WikiLeaks, which then published it, that would forever destroy their credibility. Nobody would ever believe anything they had to say ever again. And so the possibility that this is all a trick or a plot or it's entrapment or just somebody playing some kind of like elaborate joke or something more kind of odious, of course, those possibilities are things that you think about. You would be reckless not to. But, you do everything you can to eliminate that possibility by vetting what it is that you're seeing, by, I spent probably 24 hours in the first couple of days just relentlessly interrogating him to search for inconsistencies or uncertainties or things that just didn't quite feel or ring correct. But in my prior life, I was a lawyer. I took depositions where I would do that for days at a time with the witnesses and feel like I know how to kick the tires really hard on somebody's story. But especially in this world of intelligence and surveillance and the CIA, all kinds of things are done that aren't what they seem. They specialize in lying to people and deceiving people and tricking people. They're very good at it. And so, of course, you have to be very guarded and careful about what it is that you're choosing to believe, because it is your reputation and your career ultimately on the line, your ability to achieve things in a meaningful way. But given all of that, all the questioning I did of him, I have been working on surveillance a long time in the NSA for a long time, so the documents rang true to me. Mm-hmm. I was able to link them to other things that I knew about. I worked with some people who had expertise in these things and was able to talk to them. But ultimately, I relied mostly on my intuition, the intuition of Laura Poitras, with whom I was working, and got into a position where I felt very comfortable publishing this on the basis that it was true.
And lastly, in terms of Snowden, I mean, you said that when you first met him, he said he doesn't fear any jail time, and which is, certainly something that I know that I would have significantly feared. But he is, it sounds now as if he has basically accepted at least some type of quasi-permanent status in Russia. As far as what I can see in news reports today. Do you think that did his perspective change on that, or was that he was aware of the possibility he would go to jail? That was not enough for him to do this, but he has the sort of, I guess, the typical human desire to not be in jail.
Yes, for most, well, I would say for all sane people by definition, the prospect of being put into a tiny cage and having your life completely constrained and controlled until you die is a generally unpleasant idea that you would like to avoid if you can. So when I say that he was not fearful of jail, that isn't the same thing as saying he desired prison.
Right.
He would like to remain out of prison. He realized, though, when he did what he did, that there was a very good chance that he would not be able to have that desire fulfilled, that he would actually end up in American custody. It's still a possibility that he will. And he made his choice knowing that that was a possibility. One of the things that is important to him is to be able to continue to participate in the debate that he helped to provoke. If he thought that he could get a fair trial in the United States, he would not have left the United States. He would go back to the United States now. But he's seen what happened to Bradley Manning, who was taken and put into a cage, not allowed out of prison while the charges were pending for 2.5 years, was kept completely incommunicado so that we never heard Bradley Manning's voice until the organization that I helped found, the Freedom of the Press Foundation, published, against the orders of the court, an audio recording of Manning in his court-martial proceeding 2.5 years later, explaining why he did what he did. So had we not done that, Manning's voice still would not be heard, even though there was all kinds of things that have been said about him. So he doesn't trust the U.S. judiciary for very good reasons. They've proven themselves this corrupt and subservient institution whenever national security claims are made by the U.S. government. Whistleblowers in particular are persecuted. People who are put into prison aren't allowed to participate in the debates. And even Daniel Ellsberg in his Washington Post op-ed said that he thinks Snowden was absolutely right to flee, even though Ellsberg didn't, because it's a much different country now.
Well, Ellsberg was out on bail. Ellsberg was out on bail. Right.
Yeah, he was allowed out on bail. He gave press conferences all the time. He participated in the debate over what he had done. There's zero chance that Snowden would be able to do that. If he came back to the U.S. tomorrow, he would be snatched up, put into a cage, and we would probably never hear from him again, literally. And so those are not conditions that he's willing to accept. He doesn't trust the legitimacy and validity of the U.S. judicial system, where it's political culture, and I don't blame him at all. I wouldn't either if I were him. And so he wants to stay out of prison. He wants to participate in the debate that he helped start. And there aren't many countries in the world that have the both ability and willingness to avoid U.S. dictates, to not capitulate to U.S. dictates, and to enforce his legally recognized right to seek asylum. And Russia happens to be one of those countries, and that's why he's there.
Glenn Greenwald, thanks so much for taking the time. I know that you're very busy these days, and good luck with the rest of the reporting on this story. It sounds like there's going to be a lot more revelations to come, and I appreciate both your appearing and, of course, the work you're doing.
Thanks very much, Sam. Really appreciate it. Always good to talk to you.